run through this quick so we can get to Tricia. Okay, just a few things going on. It's not the MCL Grand anymore, it's the Louisville Grand Theater. So when you see Louisville Grand or just the Grand, it's still the MCL Grand, it's the same building, okay? COVID restrictions are lifted. However, you can wear a mask and social distance if that makes you feel safer to do so. PayPal is now working on the VAL's website. We gave out scholarship prizes to the LISD high school art students again this year. Our display case theme for July and August is Artist's Choice. So watch for an email for the intake for that. And it looks like we're going to be able to exhibit art at the Louisville Thrive. That'll be another community exhibit space. So be watching for an email with info on that. United We Stand hallway show, you still have time to enter. Intake is Friday, 10 to 2. Look for the information in the June newsletter that was sent to you. Hanging the art is 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. after intake. If you can help, that would be great. We can use one more person. And thank you, Jose Angel Hernandez, for curating this show. Common threads, we need help with hanging. Come to the gallery. Actually, it's 10. We'll be there starting at 10 tomorrow. And Barbara Hartman may need some help hanging her solo show too tomorrow.
Deb and I are helping.
You are? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
She's got help.
She's got enough help, so it's just Mary that might need some more help. Good. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. There will be a reception for both of these shows. Barbara's is 2 to 4 p.m. Saturday, June 19th. It's not the day that the show starts, which is this Saturday. It's the following Saturday, June 19th, and at the gallery. And then following that, from 4 to 5 is the reception for Common Threads. And that's when we'll give out the awards. You may bring wine and soft drinks, and we can only have like individually packaged snacks for food if you want to bring that. And thank you, Mary Carradine, for curating Common Threads. Okay, workshops. We've been able to increase the number of attendees because the COVID restrictions were lifted. Christine Sanders' palette knife workshop is full. We were able to extend that to 12 participants, and that is now full. Adam Lancaster's figure painting with acrylics workshop, a free workshop, is on Saturday, June 19th. We were able to increase that to 20 attendees, and there are still 5 seats left, and I'm sure they're going to go fast. You register on Eventbrite, so look that up on Eventbrite if you're interested. Thank you, Adam Lancaster, for teaching this workshop coming up. Okay, Fresh Ideas 2021, call for entries is in full swing. This is our annual premier juried show open to all artists in Texas with a first prize of $1,000 and a solo show in the Grand Gallery. Enter online at callforentry.org. Just go to callforentry.org, type in Fresh Ideas, and you'll go to the page. And be sure to read the entire prospectus so that you know everything that you need to know for your entry. You don't want to have your entry disqualified for anything. So please, it's a long prospectus, but make sure you read it all the way through. Thank you. And thank you to Deb Kreinborg and Lisa Chittenden for curating this show. Really appreciate anybody who curates. And next we have Artist of the Month for June 2021. There was a discrepancy in the vote count, but it was obvious that these 2 pieces were the top 2. So I've decided to make it a tie for first place. Tiny Irizarry did the Scribbles Benguat. Thanks. I couldn't pronounce that second word. And Beth Menke, I think it's called On the Edge. These 2 were the top ones, and it was so close. We'll give it a tie for first place.
That was Beth Manking, I think.
Beth, yeah, Manking. So yeah, hi Alfredo, there you are.
I'm here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just went ahead and gave them both a first place. They'll each get $25 because there was a discrepancy. I didn't hear back from Phil, and so we'll do it this way. Is that all right with you? I hope. And now let's move on.
Boss.
Well, actually, you're the boss.
No.
For this. Okay. Okay, Tricia Polis Leonard, many of you have already met her. She was talking with many of you when I came on. So that's great. You're going to want to go to the bottom of your window where it says chat and click on chat. That will open up a panel over on your right side of your screen. And on that is a document that you can download. You just click on it and download it. That is all information on Tricia, contact information, links, and also a list of all the materials she's going to be using tonight. So that'll be very helpful. That document is also in the email that I sent out regarding tonight's meeting. I added that in. So if you have trouble getting it from the chat, you can go to that email and download it from there. Okay, and a little bit about Tricia. She teaches painting classes at the Truckee Meadow Community College and is a volunteer docent with the Nevada Museum of Art. She authored The Artist Map to Success, showing artists how to make money doing what they love. And Tricia, I want that book. Where can I get that book?
I'll talk about that.
Okay, good. And Tricia's art has been displayed and sold through several galleries for the past 10 years. Very good, Tricia. She has created a series of videos on water media and mixed media consisting of 12 lessons teaching beginner, intermediate, and advanced painting. So look to that document. That'll have links on there for that if you're interested. And also, this is to quote Tricia. She said, "I have changed my direction to an abstract style. I find this new direction exhilarating, where I can express my innermost emotions. I hope to reach each viewer through a deep understanding of the subconscious directions our minds take us." And she says, "I believe the artist who does the work and puts in the time will gain a great sense of fulfillment and an opportunity to earn income as an artist." Thank you, Tricia. I am now going to turn this over to you. Stop the screen share.
Okay.
There you are. And I am going to, would you like to be host? Have you done this before? Shall I maybe change you to host?
Yeah, you can do. I don't know if I have all the information on how to be a host. I have been a host on the Nevada Museum site at one point.
Well, you may not need to. Hi,
Yeah.
Tony, but I want to keep you. I think what we need to do is, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through and mute everybody. Okay, so that there isn't any interruption, so we can listen, and then later we'll unmute and you can ask questions. Does that sound good, Tricia?
Yes, well, as I go along, if someone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question as I'm working, I would be happy with that.
Okay.
So,
but then please, oops, what did I do? Mute.
okay, am I unmuted now? You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, I must have accidentally muted
Okay, that's
you.
okay. I just unmuted it. It's fine. Okay, are you ready for me to start?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, Nancy asked me to give a little bit of my background before I get started with the demo. And so I'm going to go back to the very beginning. I'm going to go back to my kindergarten class. If you were to go into my kindergarten class and say, who in this room is an artist? My hand would have shot up. But you know what? The hand of every student in that class would also have shot up. Because at that age, we all think we're artists. We all think we're creators, whether it's musicians or singers or actors or visual artists. We all have that creativity within us. But then if you continue to ask that question through the grades, first grade, second grade, on up, fewer and fewer and fewer hands would go up until you get to high school. And if you were to ask a high school class, even today, who in this class is an artist, only 10% of the kids in that class would raise their hands. Well, when I was in high school, my hand was still going up in high school. How many people here would have raised their hand if people asked, are you an artist? Okay, look at, that's 2 hands of all these people. Well, that kind of reinforces this 10%. Most people have given up on thinking of themselves as creative people by high school, but I still did. And I was the school artist. I did all the posters for any event that was going on. I made all the signs, and I even got I got scholarships to go to Schnarr's Art Institute in Los Angeles on Saturdays to take art classes. And then when my senior year, I got a scholarship to go to UCLA on Saturdays to take art classes. And I fell in love with UCLA. I applied to UCLA hoping I would get in. I had to qualify academically, and I did. And I got in and I majored in art. And I continued through for my 4 years, graduated with a degree in studio art. Well, I went on to get married, and I participated in local art organizations and entered competitions early in my marriage and won some prizes, that sort of thing. But as time went on, I had some children. I got a job. I had a second marriage and some stepchildren. So now I'm up to 5 kids in my house. I had a job extended. I became, got promoted to the point where my job was taking about 50 hours a week, and I was no longer doing any artwork, nothing. But I was getting a little worried because I knew when I retired, I wanted to work at my art full time. And I was a little worried about being rusty at that point. Well, you think those worries would promote me to start trying to do some artwork, right? No, didn't. What I started doing was reading about creativity. I read everything I could. I read Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and her other book, Vein of Gold. I read Elizabeth Gilbert's book, The Big Magic, real fun book to read if you haven't read that. And then I discovered Eric Maisel. He wrote The Fear of Creating, and I fell in love with Eric Maisel as a writer. And I even enrolled in a class to become a creativity coach through his tutorship. He is a psychiatrist and a writer, not an artist, but he writes about creativity. And one of the things I got from Eric Maisel's book is that art needs to be done every day. Not for long periods of time, but every day. He was absolute about that. And so I started thinking, well, what am I going to give up to do my artwork? I can't give up time with my husband, with my kids, my job. I can't give up any time there. So what can I give up? And I figured out what I could give up. I could give up a little bit of sleep. So I started getting up 45 minutes early in the morning before I showered and got ready to go to work, and went straight to my studio and painted for 45 minutes. That's all the sleep I could give up. I couldn't do more than 45 minutes. But at the end of 1 year, I had a 1-person show. So that made me understand how important that daily practice of doing art is. And so I did that, and I continued to do that until I finally retired and became a full-time artist. But I still put in, not 45 minutes, but I put in a minimum of an hour a day, up to 2 hours a day. After 2 hours, I'm a little burned out. So that's what I do on a daily basis. And then I also teach classes at community college. And now at one time I taught kids. I taught high school art for a while, and I've taught younger kids than that. But now I teach adults, and I love teaching adults because they are so into it and they're so ready to reinstate their creativity. They suddenly are going to allow themselves to be artists again. And what I found was there are a lot of people out there who are very, very creative, but they don't know where to go with their creativity. They don't know how to progress. They don't know what to do next. And so that's why I wrote the book. And I wrote this book is The Artist's Map to Success. You can see it's not a very thick book because I figure artists want to be doing art. They don't want to be reading a huge, thick book. So I made it kind of a thin book. There are 12 chapters in this book. And at the end of each chapter are a series of tasks to be done. And most of those tasks can be done within a week. And so you read a chapter, do the tasks, and go on to the next week to read another chapter and do those tasks. There's one exception to that, and that's chapter 3 of this book. It talks about how art needs to be done every day. That's one task that has to continue. Once you start it, you need to keep doing it. So anyway, I have a lot of really practical advice here on how to proceed and become a selling artist. I also have in the back of this book some interviews that I've done with professional artists because I wanted to see what do they consider success and how did they become successful. So that's in here also. So my book is available. It's available on Amazon, but I'll tell you right now, I'm trying to do less ordering through Amazon. I'm not real happy with Amazon right now. So if you want to order the book directly from me, my email is in the information that you have. You can send me an email. I just charge $20 and I'll do a signed copy of the book and send it to you. You don't have to add any tax on or shipping or anything like that. Straight $20. So anyway, so
Tricia, Tricia, I'm going to interrupt you.
Sure.
For anybody who didn't hear me earlier, if you open up your chat by clicking chat at the bottom of your window, the document, you can click on that, download it to your computer, and that will have the links and email, all the information that you need for what Tricia's talking about tonight. Okay.
Okay. Everybody got that? Okay. The other thing that I've been doing lately is because of COVID and because my classes were cut short and because some of my students wouldn't come to class because they didn't want to expose themselves to other people, I started doing online classes, and that information is also in that chat box, and it's where I have classes that you can take online. Somebody said, I wish you could come and teach here, but you know, obviously I'm too far away, but what I do in those classes is the same things I teach in my community college class. And the only thing is you're not going to have interaction like we do on the Zoom meeting. You'll just have to watch the videos. But the nice thing about it is you can stop the video, replay things that you've missed, and stop it and do some work yourself as you go along. So that's the whole idea behind that. The other really fun thing I'm doing this summer for the first time is I'm holding a 3-day plein air painting workshop here in Reno. And all of my aspiring artists that are being in that are local artists, but it doesn't have to be. You can come from a long ways away. Reno is a great place to visit. And for 3 days, we're going to do painting different sites around Reno. There are beautiful places to paint here. And we'll paint from 9 to 12 in the morning, have a sack lunch. And then the first afternoon, we're going to do a tour of the murals in town. If you don't know, Reno has a lot of amazing murals around town. So I'm taking people on a tour of the murals in downtown Reno. The second day, we're going to paint again have lunch, and then go to the museum and have a museum tour. And then the third day, we're going to go to a restaurant for lunch, share our paintings that we've done those 3 mornings, and enjoy a good lunch together. It's going to be a lot of fun. So anyway, if you're interested in that, you can always email me and ask me about it. So anyway, those are the things that I'm working on right now. And this is part of what I do based on my book, Become a Selling Artist, to have things to do. Now, my demo. Any questions about all that? That's my life. This is the painting that I'm going to be demoing today. And the type of painting I'm going to be demoing today. I don't do a painting ever over again, but this is called Looking Glass. And it's based on Alice in Wonderland's Looking Glass. And my daughter noticed there was a big rose in the front of it. She said, it looks like Alice in Wonderland. So that's what it's become. This painting is on 300-pound watercolor paper. And the reason I use 300-pound paper is that there's such a thick series of paints and mediums on this that you have to have a really good solid surface to paint on. Now, watercolor paper is about 22 by 30, and for 300-pound, it costs at least $20 for that size sheet. So it's a little pricey, but I have another alternative, and it's what I'm going to be using today to do the demonstration. And I'll show you exactly what that is. Here it is. This is what I'm going to be working on. And this is what I call Masonite. Masonite's a commercial name. It's if you go to a lumberyard or Home Depot, it's going to be called hardboard. So I sent people to get Masonite one time, and nobody at the place knew what Masonite was. I guess it's gone out of style as that name, but this is hardboard. And you can get a sheet of 4 feet by 8 foot hardboard for under $10. Whoa, that's a lot of paintings. And they will usually at the lumberyard, they will do a certain amount of cuts for you. I know Home Depot limits it. They have a sign that says no more than 3 cuts. But I sometimes talk them into doing a few more cuts than that for me. But you can cut it yourself with mat knife, but it's a lot of work. But if you can get it cut at the lumberyard, it's a pretty good thing. Now you notice this is white. The hardboard is actually brown like this. But what you see is the white is gesso. I put 2 layers of gesso on this hardboard. And the reason for that is very important because the hardboard has glue in it that will interfere with your painting. Mm-hmm. So you don't want that to come through. You need a barrier. And the gesso makes a really nice barrier. If you were using 300-pound watercolor paper, you would still use the gesso, but for another reason. It's to keep the paint from seeping into the paper. So you have a barrier to keep the paint on the surface and not going into the paper. But you do need to put gesso on a couple layers of gesso, and you need to let that dry a couple days to let it dry because you have to dry it overnight each time. So that's what we're starting on. And the first thing that I'm going to do on this paper, now you saw my finished painting, you're not going to believe that this is what we're going to do, but I'm going to use tissue paper. And the tissue paper that I use is from an art supply store because it's bleeding tissue paper. You can use regular tissue paper from a Walmart or a Hobby Lobby, and that's fine. But I like the bleeding paper because it kind of adds the, let's see if I can hold it. This is my paper. I've cut them into shapes. I've cut them into various shapes, manageable shapes. And the reason that I like the bleeding paper is because it bleeds, but also if you take that bleeding paper and put several different colors on top of each other and spray it with water and put it out in the sun, this is what you get. Is that fun? Look at that. Woohoo! And I love working with that. So I put that in the mix also. So that's why I like the bleeding paper. And to attach this tissue paper to the surface, I'm using gloss super heavy gel. And this happens to be Liquitex, but Golden makes it. There are lots of different brands of this. The only important thing is that it is super heavy gel. You need a heavy gel to do this. And it comes in a big jar like this. You can get smaller jars, but I get the big jar. And I'm going to apply this with a regular paintbrush that we just get at a paint store. This is not an artist paintbrush. It's just a 1-inch regular old paintbrush, doesn't matter. And I'm going to take the gel and spread it on this surface. And you can see it goes on kind of white, but it dries clear. So you don't have to worry about it drying. Now the shapes that I cut are, you know, there are 5 basic shapes that have been used since the beginning of art started in the caveman days. And those shapes are a cruciform, a circle, a spiral, a triangle, and a square. I add a few more things to that. I kind of do different shapes. And you'll notice the colors that I'm using of this tissue paper are, I'm putting on analogous colors. So I'm using blue, yellow, green. Do you guys all know what analogous colors are? Anybody? No? Analogous colors are the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And you can go as far as 5 different analogous colors, 3 to 5, they usually say. And what that is, those colors will always look good together. So if you use your colors, analogous colors, they're going to blend. They're going to absolutely look good together. Now, I'm not really doing much in the way of composing this. There's no composition here. I'm just putting them on here. You know, what is that game that we used to play when we were young? Remember those pieces of plastic that you had different shapes in plastic that you put on a board? Did anyone play that game? I don't know what that was called. But anyway, that's kind of what this is. I'm not worried about what my composition is. I am overlapping the shapes, but I'm also leaving the white space of the background show through. So it's not going to be solid. And I am trying to space out, as much as I'm not doing anything to compose this, I'm making sure that the colors are spaced out. So there's some purple here, here, here. I'm going to put some purple down here. So I'm kind of spacing it around to give a variety of different colors around the surface. This looks pretty simplistic, doesn't it? Back to kindergarten days. Now, I've said I used analogous colors, and I have, but I also throw in a complementary color, and a complementary color is a cross on the color wheel. It's the one that's across from it. And in this case, I'm using red. I use one complementary color in this. I'm using red. So this is kind of different. This is not analogous. This is different. But I'm putting them all around the board. And you can see that there's a variety of different shapes. I've got some circles, some rectangles, some triangles, and just some random shapes. Just kind of had fun cutting out these shapes. Oh, here's a nice big circle. I'll put that right here. And anyway, just a lot of different colors on here, with no real rhyme or reason. This is just a fun time to kind of, oh, look at this one. This is a really interesting shape. This was a shape that happened because of something I cut out of it. So anyway, that's kind of what I do at this point in the process. Now, after I have all of these pieces of tissue paper on this. I go over it again with another layer of gel gloss, so it's good and solid over the top. And this gel gloss is going to take a while to dry. So one of the things about this process is you need drying time. And I recommend that you leave it dry overnight because it needs to be completely dry before you come back. See, this is, can you see the bleeding? I don't know if you can see that, but it's, some of this is bleeding and I like that. Okay, so I go over the whole thing with gel gloss again, and then let's put it aside and let it dry. Oh, look, and there we have it. This is a dry one. This is what it's like after it has dried. Now, the next step in this, I'm going to leave the gel gloss for a while, and I'm going to use some liquid acrylic paint. I use liquid acrylic paints a lot, and I don't buy them. You can buy liquid acrylic paints, but I actually use the heavy body paint and mix a little bit of distilled water with it and put them into a plastic bottle like this with a cap on it. This will last longer than the heavy body paints. My heavy body paints get stiff in the jar after a while. This, I've had this for years and it lasts a long time. But you have to make sure you put distilled water in it, because if you use water out of the tap, it's going to smell like rotten eggs after a while, because there are impurities in our tap water, even in the water that we drink from bottles and things. There are impurities in it that will make it smell like rotten eggs. Distilled water doesn't do that. It's fine. And this color that I'm using is called nickel azo yellow, and I have that on the list of information that you have. And this Golden is the only company that I know that makes this color. I happen to really like this color. You want a yellow. Whether it's an azo yellow or not is kind of up to you, but I like it. And you could actually make this color by mixing a little bit of black with some yellow ochre, because it's a little grayed down yellow ochre is what it is. And I'm going to shake it a little bit beforehand. And I'm going to take my brush and clean it off, clean off the gel gloss from my brush. And I'm going to squirt this all over my surface. And I'm going to take my brush and rub it around. This is a very bright yellow. Does it look as bright on your screen as it does on mine? And you know, at this point, a lot of my students say, I don't really like yellow painting, but don't worry. This is only a step in the process. This is not going to end up yellow in the end. And I rub it all over the surface. And then, as I said, this is supposed to be a glaze. So,
Tricia, someone is asking in the chat. She's asking, is there a reason why none of the shapes go off the page?
Just because it's difficult to glue it off the page. That's a really good question, because we do need to go off the page, but I'm going to do that with another process. These, when you're gluing these on, if I were to go off the page, I would have to fold it over to the back to make it work. That's why I don't have these shapes go off the page, but that is a really good point. And I'm going to get to the point where I show you how we go off the page at some point. Now I'm going to take this yellow azo nickel yellow, what is it? And rub it off with a paper towel. So it's just a thin glaze of color on here. And another drying time. Time to let it dry. So after we let it dry, this is the dry part. Now what we're going to do is put on more tissue paper. This time, I'm going to pay a little more attention to composition. And you'll notice, I'm going to bring my other painting up here. You'll notice this is very definitely a composition. It has a big focal point up here. It has lines that go across down here. I definitely consciously made that my composition in this painting. And so I haven't consciously done any composition yet on this painting, but I think I'm going to take some more tissue paper and I'm going to see if I can make like a focal point on this. You know, one thing about abstract painting is you don't have to have a focal point. With other kinds of painting you do, but not with abstract. But I sometimes like to do that. And then I'm putting some more gel over it. And that's my spiral. I love a spiral. And then I'm going to put another piece down here to echo that color that I did in the spiral down on the side here. Whoops.
So Tricia, you're cutting these pieces out to go with your composition.
Yes. I'm thinking about composition at this point. See, I'm putting a circle here. Compositionally, I think another circle should go down here. It's kind of intuitive. I would like some lines going across here. Now, one of the things, I'm putting a second layer of tissue paper on here. And that's really important, the layers, because the layer that we just put down is behind the yellow glaze that I put on, right? So it's going to fade back into the background. These are going to pop forward. And one of the things my teacher, Richard Jeebenkorn, taught me when I was at UCLA, and one of the things he said is you need a push-pull in the painting. Something that goes back and goes forward. And so this is what we're giving a back and forth. And I'm doing 2 layers of tissue paper on this, but you can certainly do more than 2. You could do 3, you could even do 4. But it's important that some of the yellow, plain yellow, still shows through around it. So let me just put another little red right here. Oh, this is one of my pieces that is multicolored. You can even tear off pieces of paper and put them on. Put that right there. But there's a lot of thought that goes into this, and I take a lot of time to do it. And then after I'm done, see, I kind of went off the edge there. There are some more going off the edge this time. And after I'm done, I go and put another thick layer of gel gloss over the top of it, so it's nice and solid. Okay, so you see, I think you're going to see with this next one how some of these pieces that were on before I put down the yellow yellow glaze kind of go back into the background. Some of them pop forward as we go. And so it needs for a little bit of depth to the painting. Now the next step, we're going to get away from acrylics a little bit. This next step, I'm adding something different into here. See this piece of metal paper? It's really paper. And I want to add metal to it now. And I've used lots of different kinds of metal. Some are thicker, some have to use gel gloss to go on. The one that I have found to be the easiest is called Crick Cut. And I get it at Hobby Lobby. And it is what it is contact paper that's metal on one side and paper on the other. Very easy to cut. And what's really nice about it is that it sticks to the surface, so I don't have to use any gel gloss to do it. But I do have to take off the back of the, this is the most time-consuming part, is getting the backing off of it. Just like when you're trying to get contact paper separated. Got it. I don't use a whole lot of this. And this comes in, where do I want to put this? Put it right here. This comes in gold and copper and silver. I don't like to use silver because it looks a little bit like tinfoil, but I do like the gold and the copper. If I can get this apart, it's the hardest part of the whole thing. And I cut, like I said, I like to have, I use regular shapes, but I also use, in almost all my paintings, I have a moon somewhere. I don't know why that is. And I love stars and triangles. I like the pointy look to them. I'm not going to put too many of these on here because it takes forever to get these backings off of here. There we go. Little star. See, there's a star here. I can echo that star right here. So one of the principles of art is repetition and variation, and I use that a lot. So there's a lot of repetition in here, stars, 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 variation, circles, circle with a hole in it. And then the next thing I'm going to do on this same piece of paper after I stick on as many of these as I want is I'm going to do a stamp. And you know linoleum blocks, you can still buy linoleum blocks. And they're wood on one side and they're linoleum on the other. They're very hard to cut. This is something that's a little newer and I think better. And this is an acrylic kind of linoleum, acrylic and linoleum, if that's possible. But the thing about it is it doesn't have anything on the back of it. So what that means is when you cut the stamp, you've got a stamp here, you've got another place to do a stamp on the back. So you get double the amount of stamps on it. And I'm going to add a stamp to this. And I'm going to use a little roller like you get at the paint store, again. And I'm going to use this iridescent pearl just because I like it. It's iridescent pearl paint. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on your screen as well as I would like, but it's really nice. It's kind of subtle. And when I do the stamping on this, I have cut my stamp to echo some of the shapes that are here. There's a half circle, there's a spiral, there are triangles. So I'm kind of echoing the same shapes that I've used on with the tissue paper. And I'm going to stamp it. And somebody talked about going to the edges. This is where I go to the edges. I go to the edges with the stamp right here. And you're right, it's very important to include the edges in a painting. And I don't do just one stamp, but I'll do like a row of stamps. So this little design that I've done becomes more complex as it goes up the side. Can you see that at all? Can you see the color in that? I'm going to do a darker one, so you'll see that in a minute. And I'm going to put it another way over here on this edge. And I'm going to put another one up here. Okay, now I'm going to use black, and you're going to, I don't know if you can see what I just did with that color. It's hard to see on the screen, but you're going to see the black.
Can you,
Uh-huh.
we can't see the iridescent shining or the gold shining at all. We just see the flat color. If you change it under the light for a minute, do you think we could see that?
You change the angle?
Well, yeah, it just looks like, yeah, well, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know if there's any way I can do anything about that. But I'm stamping with dark black right now on top of the iridescent. There. Oh, that looks really good. Can you see the black?
Yes.
Okay, and I can put another one down here. Kind of hard to press real hard on this surface. Okay. Okay, and so there we have it. And okay, I've done something a little ahead of time. Okay, I think I put these on a little bit fast, but this needs to dry. So now what we're going to do, I've left one step off. I just see that. Because one of the things that we need to do now is put on red and blue. And I'm not going to be able to do it because I put the stamps on before I should have done it. But what I use for red and blue on this is I use phthalo turquoise. It's just my favorite blue. And I use quin magenta. And what I do with this is I squirt it on to the painting just like I did the yellow and make a glaze. But what you're going to have to decide at this point is, do you want a warm painting or a cool painting? And if you want a warm painting, you're going to do 2/3 of this in the quin magenta. If you want a cool painting, you're going to do 2/3 of it in the turquoise or the blue, whatever blue you're using. So we squirt it on and rub it off just like we did with the yellow. And see, I already got the things on here, but this is what it comes out looking like. So now the yellow that was so bright before now is reddish here and bluish here. So that comes out much nicer. what I can do when I'm rubbing this off, a lot of times what I do is spray it with alcohol. And this, even though you need to let this dry a little bit, this can't dry overnight. This has to dry for just like an hour or two, depending on how dry your climate is. But just let it dry for a little while. To dry it overnight, it gets too hard on here and it doesn't come off. Right now, I'm still getting some of the color off. So that's working out pretty well. So you take off as much color as will come off, but a lot of it's going to be left on there. And you're going to have a red and a blue, either more of a warm palette or more of a cool palette. This is a warm palette. Okay, now I'm going to go step ahead here. This is what I just did. This has everything on it. It has the warm and the cool, red and blue. It has the stamping on it. It's dry. And it has the metal pieces on here. Now the metal pieces kind of stand out on this surface. They just kind of are plopped on the top of it. And so what I want to do is blend them into the painting more. And the way that I do that is with Sennelier paint. I don't know if you're familiar with Sennelier paints. They come in packets like this. And they also come in another way. They come in 3D liners. I use this in my classes because my students can buy less of it. They don't have to buy a whole big packet. But I am buying a packet. Now this is copper. This is copper on here. And so I'm going to use the copper colored paint, Sennelier paint. And what you can do, you can buy with this Sennelier paint, is you can buy little tips that are like cake decorating tips that hook right onto the packet. Very cool. And then what I'm going to do is pipe around the metal pieces. And it's just like cake decorating. Okay, every one of these metal pieces gets piping around it. Okay, I think I've got all the metal pieces. Now I'm going to go further than that. Somebody was talking about attaching the edges of the painting, and I know one of the things I learned from Karen Knutson is it's very important to attach the edges of the painting with lines that go off the edge. And you want to do that on every single side of the painting. So I'm going to start a line right up here and start going around some of the tissue paper shapes. but I am going to go off the edges and into the painting. So it creates a continuum. Now you don't go around all of the shapes. You pick out the shapes that you think are the most significant.
What color paint is that?
Pardon me?
What color paint is that? Is that black
What I'm
or
putting
is
on right now,
yes?
this is copper. This
Oh,
is
still the copper. Okay,
metallic copper.
okay,
No.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes the shapes don't go all the way out to the edge, but I tape this piping all the way out to the edge.
Tricia, you know, I said this before, but if you can adjust the light somehow so we can see how vibrant and metallic it is, it's just, it looks flat the way we're looking at it. And this is the exciting part of it, is what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're,
If I put it up close like that, can you see it?
that's much better. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to be able to paint it up here, but I can bring it up to show.
Right. Just show them what's.
Yeah. Does that help a little?
Yes.
Yeah, you can kind of see it reflecting.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That help a little? I'll do a little bit more piping and I'll do that again so you can see it. Yeah, you're right. The exciting part of this is this metallic
Yes.
part. Okay, I'm going off the edges. And like I said, I don't go around every single piece. I kind of select those pieces that I think are most interesting. And I also connect some of the pieces. This is a really interesting one. Okay. Okay. Let me see, I don't know what happened to the top of this one. Let me see if I can hold it up to the screen again so you can kind of get a look at it. Can you kind of see how it's reflecting?
Yes. Yeah.
And you can see a lot of the interest. You can see the stamps. I don't think you could see the stamps before. One of my thoughts in doing paintings is I want to do a painting that someone can look at from a distance and enjoy, but then come up close and see something different. This is another one. And this is now, you would have to let that dry, because if you touch these things when they're wet, you're going to mess them up. They're like decorations on a cake, you know, you're going to smash it if you don't let it sit and dry. So this is the last, we're into the last stage right now. Okay, and am I doing okay on time? We started at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, well, 5 o'clock, my time, 6 o'clock. Okay, so now what I want to do.
Yeah, you've got about another hour. You can go.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know if I'm going to take the whole hour because you might get bored watching me do the stuff I'm doing. But what I want to ask you right now, you're artists, what is missing from this painting? The principle that is missing. It's kind of a principle. It isn't one of the 8 principles that you usually know. If you were to take a picture of this painting with a camera and change it to black and white, what would it look like?
The same value in a way.
Yes, you got it. It is all middle values. That's the problem with this painting right now. 2 middle values. And what I'm going to do at this point is add in the darkest dark value and sort of the lightest light value. And I'm going to put on carbon black. And I'm going to put in, I don't like to use white because I think white would be too shocking to this painting. It would just be too much. So what I use is Naples yellow. If you were to put Naples yellow in a black and white photograph, it's going to look white when it goes, because it's very light yellow. And Naples yellow, almost every paint company makes the Naples yellow. You can make it yourself, actually, because basically all it is white paint with a little bit of yellow ochre in it. But I don't, I go ahead and buy the paint this way. And what I'm going to do is, at this point, this is the fun part, the really creative part for those of us that like to paint. There's something called Zendangles. Have you ever heard of Zendangles?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to do on this. I'm going to add Zendangles to it. And one of my favorite Zendangles is checkerboard. I'm going to put a checkerboard in here. And one of the things I learned from, if you ever get a chance to look at a video by Karen Knudsen, she's a wonderful painter and she's a wonderful teacher. And one of the things she talks about is the most important 2 things she thinks of the principles of art are dominance like that, and repetition and variation. And she always tries to keep that in mind when she's doing her painting. So I'm doing something here that isn't repeated any place in this painting. So I need to repeat it. And when I repeat it, I need to vary it. We should have some music playing. Okay, so I have this little checkerboard over here. I got to do it somewhere else. And I might go down here and make another checkerboard. But maybe this one's going to be at an angle.
Say something, Tricia.
Say something?
Yes.
Okay. Well, one thing I'm doing is repeating something, right? I'm repeating it, repeating the black. And I've added black in here and it's very strong. Can you get the strength of that black?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And when I repeat something, I a lot of times want to repeat it 3 times. You know, I always say to my students, we have something that we say in class, is that you want to make repetitions and you want to do mama bear, papa bear, baby bear. So you want to have small repetitions and big repetitions. So I'm going to do a small repetition over here. So I've got my checkerboard repeated. But you know what we never want to do is bore people with our paintings. And so I've got to come up with something else to do. And maybe I'll do circles up here. And again, I need to repeat. So maybe I need to repeat. Maybe I'm going to do half circles down here. Repetition, but variation. And then I need to bring these lines from this side into the picture. And I'm going to do that with some really black. And make it a thicker line. Again, variation. And then I could actually blacken in a whole area. Anything goes on this. Anything you can think of doing goes. And then I have some stars in the gold. Maybe I need some black stars. And again, mama bear, papa bear, baby bear, I'm going to do 3 black stars, and one's going to be really big. Okay, and then I need, what else I can do is I could do a leaf-like pattern. Leaves coming in. And I need to put some more black lines around this area coming from the side. Okay, are you kind of getting how I'm doing this? maybe I'll do a black line here. And this way, and comes around. Maybe I want to emphasize this focal point. Okay, and I can keep doing this for like ever, but I need to change to my yellow, Naples yellow, and add some light places in here. And I can paint over some of the stuff. I can also paint into, I can actually paint right into the center of this with this Naples yellow. And I can do some in here. So now I've added, now I have a full range of values. As John Salmon would say, you need to go from a value 9 down to a value 1 in your painting. Have any of you taken classes from John Salmon? Nancy, maybe you have. And I still don't have enough variation in my stars. And I could add some more circles. And I could even add some lines somewhere. And I could do some more leaf patterns. And I even use the stamp to go around a little bit. So, I mean, it's just kind of like you can do a lot. Anything else? Now, this would be the time that I would sit back. Let me bring this up close again and see if I can show you all that's been going on with this. This is the time that I would take this aside and sit back and look at it and see what else I felt it needed. And one of the things that I could do at this point is glaze it a little more. And if you add the blue glaze onto red areas, it's going to dull it down. So if I want to dull it, that's what I might do. I'm putting on the blue. See a red area here. So I'm glazing over the top of this to give it, dull it down a bit. And that also gives a nice shape to it. And I'm always looking, I'm having a trouble seeing it from this point of view right now. But if I were standing back from it, I would see where I thought these duller spots might be effective. Take that off there. And just kind of play. This is just play time. Play, play, play. And then the very last thing I would do on this is use my atomizer. Have any of you used an atomizer before? Do you know what an atomizer is? You do. Some of you do. Any atomizer? This is an atomizer, and this is something that when you put it into paint and you blow into it, it sprays a very fine mist of paint on your surface. And what I use the atomizer with two different colors. I use, and this comes straight from John Salmonen. Red iron oxide is one color, and the other one is Payne's gray. And those are the colors that actually he uses. And I pour them into a cup and use the atomizer. And when I blow into this, a very strange thing, the Venturi effect happens. The Venturi effect means that as you blow into this top pipe, it pulls the paint from the bottom and sprays it out. Don't ask me how that happens, but it does. And I put this around the edges to pull people's eyes into the painting. And I don't expect that you can see this. Too well on the camera because it's a very fine spray.
Can you bring it closer to the camera?
I can, but
Or
I
like
don't,
a little part?
I don't know if you're gonna see it because you have to, maybe you can see it a little bit right there. Can you see the little spots?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to really get close up to the painting to see this, but it does affect how somebody sees the painting from a distance. This is the Payne's gray. Maybe this might show it a little better. Okay. Let's pull this a little closer and see. Can you see the spots of paint on that?
Yes.
Yeah, and what it does, if you look from a distance, it makes the edge of the painting a little bit darker, so it pulls the eye into the center part of the painting. And as I look at this, I would always make adjustments. And the thing is right here, I feel like this is a little too strong. So I'm going to put some black dots in this. I think that kind of tones it down a little bit. And it's a little bigger dot. And I can even make bigger dots. I can even make a bigger dot down here. And I can even make, I haven't used too much, is triangles. I a lot of times use triangles in this. And if these shapes are not as smooth as I would like them, because I don't usually work at an easel, I work flat. But I could go back and use a marking pen and fix these black spaces that if I wanted to be a little more regular. Repetition. And the last thing to do with this painting would be, first of all, there would have to be a lot of time where you step back and evaluate and figure out what you're going to do and come back and play with it some more. But the other thing I could do, I could take a picture of it and turn it around on my camera, or I can actually just turn it and say, is it better this way? Or is it better this way? The nice thing about abstracts is you can do that and you can decide which way it's going to look better and then go back and make adjustments on that again. So anyway, that would be the last thing I did on the painting. And I could go back, I probably would go back and do a little bit more of values on it. This one, I've really gone in and really neutralized a lot of the color down here so that the color is more up here. So I've got more neutrals down here. I went over this, it was kind of a yellow, and I went over it with a red, which makes kind of an orangish color. And I just did glazes over it. The other thing it can do is add some extra stamps. I have a Chinese coin stamp that I added into this one right here. But you can see a lot of things I've done on this are the same things that I've done on this one, but they're different paintings. They're completely different paintings. And every time you do it, it comes out a little different. So,
Hey, Tricia, yeah, I'm going to ask you an important question here.
Sure.
Okay, from what you said, as this exhilarating where I can express my innermost emotions. Okay, tell me about your innermost emotions.
Well, you know, my emotions in my paintings are generally upbeat. I look for beauty, I look for happiness and things, but definitely when I saw this painting, you know, my emotions come into it as I'm looking at it. And as I was looking at it, I was thinking of the mystery of Alice in Wonderland, the mysterious stuff that happened in that story. And so this is kind of almost a fantasy of that. There's actually a little horse down here, if you notice. You know, so as I go through it, I'm thinking of things that I notice. I have another painting that I did that I called Sun, Moon, and Stars. And it really is the firmament. It's the outside area. And a lot of my things that I do in here with the stars and the moon shapes and things like that talk about the universe. But I'm always looking for an upbeat message in my paintings. My paintings are not a downer. I would like people to look at them and say, this makes me happy, or this makes me satisfied, or this just ups my level of thinking. So, you know, that's generally what painting is for me. It's a way to connect with the universe and to connect with good things and happy things. And that's kind of what I do. And what comes out of the paintings as I'm doing them is maybe not what I started out thinking it was going to be. It might be something completely different. But it's never a downer. I never want my paintings to bring somebody down, to make them feel depressed, to make them feel unhappy. I always want a good feeling to come out of it. And hopefully it does. I don't know. But that's what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah.
How do you finish this now? Do you frame it? Do you put a fixative, or what? How do you prepare it for sale?
Okay, well, first of all, I let it sit for 3 weeks because it takes acrylics 3 weeks to cure. They may seem dry on the surface, but there may be some wetness inside. And so you've got to let it be free to the air for 3 weeks. So I let it sit around for 3 weeks. Then I put a varnish on it, and I started using, I used to use the paint on varnish. It's a regular varnish that you buy from an art supply store, acrylic varnish, but it comes in spray cans. And I started using the spray cans because I didn't like the traces of the brush that came to the painting. If you spray it, it's a completely smooth thing. And there are 3 different kinds of spray varnish. There is gloss varnish, there is satin varnish, and there's matte varnish. And depending on how you want your painting to look at the end, you will use one of those 3 at the end. But you always start off with the gloss varnish first. And so one of the things I've learned from the watercolor artists that come, watercolors are now oftentimes not using acrylic on the outside of their paintings. They spray it. And what they do is spray it first with gloss varnish, but watercolor isn't glossy. So then you spray another layer over it with matte varnish to make it look more like a watercolor. This, I want this to be a little shiny because that's my intent. So I use the gloss varnish and that's it. And there is no plexiglass or glass over the top of this. You don't need to do that if you use the varnish, and then you can just put it in the frame. The only reason I would put plexiglass over the top of it is if I were going to matte it. This is not matted. It goes right to the edge of the frame. But if you matte it, you have to have plexiglass over the top, and that's not to protect the painting, that's to protect the matte, actually. So that was the only reason I would ever matte something. If I had done this and I didn't think it was the right size and I needed to matte it to fit it into a frame that I had, then I would have to put plexiglass or glass over it. But I prefer not to. I think it's much nicer to have it be seen uncovered. Does that answer your question, Alfred?
Just remember to unmute yourself when you want to ask a question or answer a question.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question. I don't know if I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
In the beginning, when you were talking about starting out with the gesso, I always look at the different brands of gesso and never know what to buy. Do I need like a high quality gesso or the cheapest brand I can find? I've never been satisfied with gessoing watercolor paper. It's streaky looking. So I don't know if it's the gesso I'm buying or what.
You know, I don't buy any particular brand of gesso. I just buy it from Jerry's Artorama in a big tub, and it seems fine to me. Gesso used to be plaster. That's what it was made of. Nowadays, it's not. It's acrylic. Everything's acrylic now. So
Okay.
that's what they use. And so you would just want acrylic-based gesso. I don't even think they make the plaster gesso anymore. I think it's all acrylic.
Oh,
But
okay.
I've been pretty happy that, you know, if it's streaky, what you probably need to do is put more than one coat on it and let them dry in between the coats, because
Okay.
then you can get it solid. It tends to be thin. Gesso is thinnish, and that's why I put 2 coats down before I ever start painting on the masonite or hardboard. So I put a good 2 good coats on.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Jackie, I
Yes.
discovered recently that there is a gesso made for watercolor.
Oh,
I used
really?
it, yeah, I used it on a canvas because I wanted to do the
Huh?
painting on a canvas, and I was using watercolor with it. And I discovered this gesso to use.
Where did you find that?
Good question.
I've never seen that.
I'm gonna go get it and I'll bring it and show you. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have never seen that. So anyway, any other questions? Anything else you're wondering about?
Now, Tricia, I have a question. You started telling us about watercolor paper, but then you switched to masonite.
Yes.
So when you use the paper, I would like to know if there is any special brand of paper, or you just buy it in Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and you said the size is 22 by 30 inches.
Yeah, I prefer Arches watercolor paper. I've just had good luck with them. Fabriano is wonderful also, but I definitely would not buy any cheap watercolor paper. I would not do that. I would buy the major brands, the Arches or Fabriano, because, well, if you're doing watercolor especially, it's going to streak, and if the cheaper brands just are not good. There are some things that you need to have good brands of. You need to have good brand paint, very good brand paint. I would never get the basic paints or the artist grade paint. That is terrible, because they don't mix properly. They don't mix good colors. And so I would always use, I use Atelier paints. I happen to like Atelier. But Golden is great. Liquitex is fine. I'm trying to think the other names of acrylic paints, but any really good brand paint, they're all going to cost about the same amount, and you're going to put some money into your paint. It's going to cost. And then the other thing that I think is really important is to have a good surface that you're painting on, except I use hardboard. It's not a good surface. But I put gesso down, and it's a hard surface. But if I were using watercolor, I would definitely use Arches watercolor paper, because it's really, really good paper. The things that I don't put a lot of money into are my brushes. I buy cheap brushes. I use them forever. I keep cleaning them. I stick them in the brush cleaner nightly. They get really crappy, but I like my old brushes, and I think old brushes are good. The thing that I don't use old brushes for is watercolor. I keep my watercolor brushes separate, and I buy good watercolor brushes, and I never use them in acrylics. But acrylic brushes, they can be just cheap brushes, doesn't matter. You can buy your brushes at a paint store.
How about the bleeding paper, tissue paper? There are different qualities too.
Well,
Walmart is really cheap, but then there are others that are really expensive.
well, the one I bought, I can actually go get it and show it to you. I've got it right over here. This was $20 for more tissue paper than I will use in a lifetime. So this is what I got at my art supply store, and it's called Spectra Art Tissue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's 100 sheets. I'll never go through this in my lifetime. I mean, I don't use but a tiny bit of it, but it's really nice. And I learned about that bleeding it out and getting different colors from one of my students. She accidentally left it out in the rain outside and the sun, and she brought back this gorgeous paper that we all took pieces of, and it's just beautiful. But that's the bleeding paper that does that.
Do you ever try to do 3D with the paper? You know, just how you say, make it like a ball or whatever, and then put the gloss on top of, and just make, you know, 3D shapes.
Yeah, I have actually. I actually have a painting that somebody bought that I put birds on, and that's what I did. I scrunched up tissue paper and put matte medium with it and made a 3D birds on the painting. So yeah, I have. You know, anything goes.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good thing about abstract.
Yeah, you can try whatever you can try. Hey, go for it. Do it. And that's the nice thing about acrylics, is that when you do something like that, all you have to do is put a lot of matte medium over it, and it's not going to deteriorate on you. It's going to stay. So the other thing I keep around all the time is a spray bottle of alcohol. That's really great to make a glaze with your paints, or soften up the paints, or change the color of the paints, or blend the paints. It's just like, you can just always spray some alcohol on it and see what happens. You know, that's really fun. I like doing that. Anything else? Oh God, I can't believe I did finish this early. So, and I said, this is not normal. I would spend 13 hours plus to finish a painting this size. I would go on and go back, and in fact, I will go back and work on this more, figure out what I want to do, see what I like, what I don't like. All that evaluation time is really important for an artist. And one of the big tools that I use nowadays, and I use it with my students too, is the cell phone. It's great to take a picture of your painting and put it on your cell phone, because it's like you're standing away from it and you see it from a different angle. You can also flip it around. You can also change the color on it and see if something looks different, looks better. But that's a really nice tool to use now.
Yeah, you can put it on like black and white, and then you can
Yes.
see the contrast.
Right. You learn about value on your cell phone. I've done that with people that brought in paintings to be evaluated at our co-op that we have. They came in and said, "What's wrong with this?" And I said, "Take a picture with your cell phone. Okay, now look at it. What color is it? Oh, it's gray. That means you have no value in it. That's the problem." And that's 9 times out of 10 the problems that people have are with value. Value does all the work, color gets all the credit. Famous saying.
Tricia,
Uh-huh.
when you finish up your painting, do you suppose you could send it to Diane and so she could post it so everybody could see the final result of it?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to do that. I need Diane's email. So Diane, if you would send me an email, then I can just shoot it back to you. Yeah. And actually, all these paintings that I did to prepare for this one will all become paintings. They're all going to be different paintings. So I've got a lot of work ahead. I started because they're all starts. Can't let a good start go to waste. Anything else?
Where's Diane?
What?
Diane is the MC here.
Right.
Oh, she left the building.
She's
Oh, no.
I'm here.
Oh, she's there. She's
I'm
there.
sending Tricia the email, so I don't forget.
Okay. Oh, good.
Wow.
Okay.
And I just sent them a chat to get your email address because I want to order a book too.
Okay. Send me your address. And if you stick $20 in the mail, a check for $20, you'll get the book.
Okay.
You have my address? No, maybe not.
You know what? She said that it's on the chat, but when I hit chat, I didn't get any kind of a link. So maybe it's in the message that we got before we got on the Zoom. I'm not sure.
Okay, I don't know if I put my physical address in that information. I may not have.
Oh,
We can get it to you. I can.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send it to Diane
Okay.
and let her know.
Yeah, the document is at the very top of the chat. You may have to scroll up. Do you know how to get to the chat?
well, I see a little balloon shaped thing that says chat that I write a message on. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, you click on that, on chat, and then the panel will come up over on your right. It's got all kinds of messages on it. People are talking to each other.
Yeah, I've been talking.
Yeah, you've been on
But
it.
I
You
don't
know it.
see any link. Oh, you say go
It's
to
way
the very
up.
top.
It's way up here. It's way up at the top.
Okay, I see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
it says info for demo.
Got it.
Okay, that's it. Just click and it'll open up. I believe.
Diane, I would like to say, this was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're thanking me?
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nancy. You're the one that arranged for Tricia. I really appreciate that. You did a fabulous job, and you found us a great speaker for this month.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
I hope you people did enjoy it. It's not, I know this is not everybody's cup of tea, but maybe when you go to a museum and see some abstract work, you're going to have a little more appreciation for what goes into it, because you could see when we did the first thing off, how different it can look as you go forward. Starting from this and going to that, there's just a whole layers and layers of work that goes into most abstract painting.
Good job. Good job. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you all for being such good participants and listening and being patient with me.
Yeah, it was beautiful, very informative, wonderful.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, good, good. I'm so glad.
Thank you, Tricia.
And if any of you do any paintings along this line, please send me an email with what you've done. I love to see my students' work, which is never like my work, which I love. You know, they do very individual things, and that you use the same ideas, but come up with something completely unique and different. And I like that.
I can also see how this works with your like 45-minute thing. I'm going to give up 45 minutes of sleep, because you can work for 45 minutes and then you need to let it dry overnight and then you work on it some more the next day. And
That's
so all
right.
those layers and the drying and all that, it works out well for that. And
Yeah.
I need to do it, do that. That was good, really good
Well, read
advice.
my book, because one of the things I do is I keep track of the hours. I write down when I start and when I stop every day. And I add all those hours up at the end of the month and see, you know, kind of do a reflection. Did I do a good job this month? Did I do at least 30 hours this month? That's what my goal is. If I didn't, why? And start again.
Mhm. Do you mind if I ask what your art sells for? What do you usually get?
For a piece as big as this big one, I usually ask about $800 for it. And I will tell you that costs of art at Reno are very low. I moved from the Bay Area and we got so much more for our work in the Bay Area than we do here. But that's about $800. For a half sheet of watercolor paper, it's about $500 of watercolor. And for a little piece, I'll do about $300. That's just what I find the market bears. And sometimes people come and offer you a lot less. And I, generally speaking, I've had people come in and offer $250 for a full sheet, one this big. And I have literally said no, because once you give your commission to your gallery, and sometimes there's two commissions, there's one to the gallery and one to wherever it's hanging. And then you've paid for the framing and you have put in all the time that you've put in, plus all your materials. I'm thinking I'm not getting $18 an hour for that, you know, if I'm only paying $250. And I really object to it when somebody does that. And I just say, no, I'll keep it rather than sell it for that.
Yeah, so you said $18 an hour. Is that kind of your general thinking of what you?
Well, that's what I'm thinking I would be getting if I let it go for $250.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna work that cheap. I'll keep the work rather than let it go that cheap. And I do work with gallery owners on pricing. And so these prices that we've come up with are things that they know the market will bear. And we kind of work it out together and say, what do you think? And come together on it. And they're really good about backing me on my prices.
Can I ask you a question? How would you did you become successful? In other words, selling works artists. Do you think it's word of mouth, Instagram, Facebook? You know, do you have a way to percentage-wise say, okay, I attribute my sales to 30% is you know, Instagram, 10 is that I know the owner of the gallery or whatever. You know, how do you estimate that you made it, you know, that you're selling that, you know what I mean?
One of the things when I interviewed Eric Maisel, who's an author, and I asked him, are you successful and how did you become successful? He says, well, you know, it's really a matter of cobbling together a lot of different things. You do a little bit of book sales, you do a little bit of teaching, you do a little bit of presentations. I'm giving a talk at a gallery next month. I'm doing a workshop. I sell artwork. I approach several different galleries where my work is hanging. And it's kind of like a little bit of everything. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but I can't say that I've sold a lot of work that way. People, generally speaking, want to see my work in person before they buy it. So galleries are my best.
How do you spell the last name, Maisel? How do you spell that? It's Eric Maisel, did you say?
M-A-I-S-E-L.
And that was The Spirit of Creativity. Is that was the title of the book?
The Fear of Creating.
Oh, Fear.
Fearless Creating. Fearless Creating.
Fearless Creating.
I think that's what it's called. I'm thinking, yeah, it's on my bookshelf. Fearless Creating. He's written about probably at least 30 books. Anxiety and artists.
The fear of creating.
Yeah, fearless creating. Let me just get the book. Yeah, fearless creating. This is his book right here.
Fearless creating. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's written a lot of books. I've read every single book he's written. I love him. As I said, he's a psychiatrist, so he deals with creative people in all the different areas of the arts. And I think he works with some very high-end people and gets paid a lot to coach them. But he has a really good way of expressing what, there are things called blocks that people go through. I don't know if you've ever had a block where you look at the canvas and say, oh my God, I can't face that piece of white paper. What am I going to do? Or how am I going to get through this painting? Or when is this painting finished? All those things that you struggle with as an artist. Everybody struggles with it. You think you're the only one, but everybody struggles with it. And he talks about that in his books and how you deal with it, how you approach these anxieties. He calls them anxieties because that's what they are. I've had people I've coached that were so anxious about painting they couldn't even put a brush on the piece of paper, and they wanted to paint, but they couldn't do it. And so we had to work through that and work through methods of dealing with that. But yeah, it's really, there's a lot of psychology to this. My master's is in counseling.
Perfect.
So it all fits together, believe me. Why I got into counseling was because I taught art. And let me tell you, if you're teaching art, you learn about people's problems, their anxieties, because while they're working at art, they're talking and telling you what's going on in their life.
Okay, Tricia, why was I sending you my email?
So I could send you a picture of this when
The picture, that's right.
when it's
Yeah.
done. So I will work on it and send you something. It may be pretty close to done. I'm looking at it in the picture right now. It's not pretty much what I had in mind. I might put a little bit more glazing on it.
I don't see your email. Can you give it to us again?
Yeah.
I can put it on the chat.
Oh,
I'll put it
okay.
on the chat. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a couple different emails. The best one is tricialeonardstudio@gmail.com.
Tricia Leonard Studios.
Studio, no S on the end of studio,
Okay.
@gmail.com. And I also have an AT&T Gmail, and I'm not happy with AT&T because they keep dropping my email. I don't know why.
Oops, I forgot the @ Sorry, people. I'll do that again.
And if any of you come to Reno, give me a heads up. Send me an email and let me know you're coming here, because it is a wonderful town to visit. And there are so many wonderful things to do here. So
This is Jackie. That may happen because our friends from Reno have been here twice now, so I
okay.
need to go there.
Well, I can give you the heads up on a lot of things to see. There are lots of galleries here. They're not centrally located. They're spread all over town. So you
Okay,
kind of have to know where they are, and you have to go in a car because there's no walking the gallery district. There is no gallery district, but there's lots
okay.
of galleries.
That could happen sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, Tricia, do you have chat open?
I don't think I do.
I hear her.
do it because there's a lot of thank yous and you did a wonderful demo.
okay.
And so good little
Good.
messages.
Oh,
for-
wow. Wow, there's lots of stuff on the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well, I hope you did enjoy this. And
very
I
much.
hope it inspires you to go forward and try something new and different, even if it's not what I'm doing, something different. And like I said, I would love to see anything that someone does along these lines, because I can tell you, my art classes, they know I am not like a Bob Ross art teacher who does something and expects everybody to look just like mine. I don't expect that at all. I give them the format of what to do and then let them go, and they come up with all kinds of different things. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be in the class and see that. And I love that.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
How do you come up with names, with titles for
Titles
your?
for the paintings? Oh, that's always a challenge.
That's why I ask you.
Actually, this one, I actually sent out an email on Instagram and said, here's my painting. What do you think about a title? And people sent me titles. I didn't use any of the titles people sent me, but they gave me ideas, because one of the things that came out about it was the idea that it was like a rose from Alice in Wonderland's The Garden of the Queen in Alice in Wonderland. And I thought, oh my gosh, my daughter suggested naming it Lancaster Rose or something like that. But I kind of had to get it down to what I could use, and I just put Looking Glass, because that's what it referred to. It refers to Alice in Wonderland. So sometimes I ask other people. Sometimes it's I'm making a painting and my granddaughter emailed me that I'm in Baja, California. Here I am, paddleboarding in Baja. And I said, okay, that's the name of my painting, Baja. So it'll, something will come up. I've heard people say, in picking names for paintings, I've had artists say that they have friends that go through the dictionary and just pick out a really complicated word and put all these complicated words as names of their paintings. So it has nothing to do with the painting at all. They just kind of pick something. I think it's really bad to do something called untitled. I don't think that's good. I think you have to have a title for a painting, because that takes on a personality. It becomes something. When you give it a title, it's like a person then. It's like something personal. Sometimes I refer to something that's in the painting. Three Graces was one of my paintings. And they were Three Graces in there. So if you've got something that's, has a picture of something, and it's easier to name it. If you're doing abstract, it's a little more complicated. I've named a lot of them things like Anticipation, because of what I'm feeling while I'm doing it. Be things like that, but just a variety of different things. But every one of my paintings has a name.